But the baseball playoffs, very much alive, getting closer to the World Series. The Orioles are looking for a new manager, among other things. And here to talk about all of that and more, he's on the Window Nation guest hotline from BaltimoreBaseball.com. Rich Dubroff. Rich, good afternoon. How you feeling?
I am feeling great, Bob. And I'm feeling even better, Vinny.
That's good. Now, Oriole managerial search, and you were there a couple of weeks ago when Mike Elias met with the media. By the way, Tony Mansolino before him, which was I thought was kind of an interesting scenario. But he said it starts now. And another opening or two has cropped up since then as Mike Shildt retired yesterday as the manager of the Padres. So what kind of competition are the Orioles facing in their search for a full-time manager? And it could be Mansolino, who knows? So how are everything proceeding as we creep closer to the World Series when baseball usually wants you to pipe down on announcements during that time?
It's proceeding very quietly, Bob.
Yeah, right.
It really, Mike Elias is really good at preventing leaks coming from his office. The Orioles have a very, very small front office, actually, and any leaks are not coming out of there. So whatever you hear, including from my mouth and what I write, is guesswork. But what's interesting is when Elias was talking to us that day, there were 3 managerial openings. Right now, there are 8. So, in fact, there was one that happened while he was talking, the San Francisco Giants. So you can guess who's in the running. Everybody has assumed that Ryan Flaherty is somebody who's going to get a look. He's getting a lot of consideration from a lot of places right now. And Tony Mansolino, according to the odds makers, is the second choice to be the manager. But this was before San Diego yesterday, and Ryan Flaherty has ties in San Diego. He was the bench coach there for a couple of years, and he was apparently the runner-up to Mike Shildt in the fall of 2023 when it came to deciding a manager there. So San Diego and Ryan Flaherty seem to be an interesting mix, and we'll see what happens here. Mansolino certainly could be the manager in 2026.
And Flaherty and Manny Machado were teammates here in Baltimore, too. Not that means anything for sure. But Tyler O'Neill, if we talk about disappointments for the Orioles, and there are plenty of them in 25, he'd have to be at or near the top of the list. I know the muscles are rippling and the power is undeniable, but the IL stints are far outweigh, it seems, his production on said field. He's got an opt-out. He's not going to do it. So as we look at Tyler O'Neill, we always say about Grayson Rodriguez, don't count on him to do anything until he does it. I'm kind of leaning that way with O'Neill. What do you think?
I think that's a good way to lean. But you know what's interesting, Bob? Everybody was so upset when Anthony Santander left. Santander and O'Neill played in the exact number of games this year. Same number of games. They each played in 54 games. And believe it or not, Tyler O'Neill outproduced Anthony Santander. But that still doesn't take away from the Orioles losing Santander, who was a terrific guy and a terrific hitter. But right now, because I know a lot of fans say, gee, let's just get rid of him. Cut him loose. Eat the money. But right now, the Orioles don't have, a lot of outfielders, a lot of major league outfielders. So O'Neill still will be on the team. They'll give him a chance and sort of, whatever you get from him is a bonus. If he plays 80 games or plays 100 games, maybe that'll be a good thing for him. But last year was certainly a disaster. They can't have that again. But what they have to do is go out and get a couple of really good outfielders so that he's sort of a luxury for him. That maybe he plays only against left-handers. Get a couple of other, good right-handed hitting outfielders. I mean, they had one for a while in Ramon Laureano, and then he got traded. But they ended the season basically as with him, Cowser, and Dylan Beavers as the outfielders, and Jeremiah Jackson sort of filling in there too. So they need, I think they need, 2 more good outfielders anyway. And then, if they have him and he does okay, then that's great. And if not, well, they'll have other players. But I think that's a really important thing. They have a few things that they need to do this winter, and that's one thing that they really need to do.
Way to temper expectations. Yeah. And by the way, mine aren't that great anyway. Tony Taters, by the way, was a late scratch for Toronto with a sore back in their game against Seattle. Rich Dubroff, BaltimoreBaseball.com, talking some Orioles and playoffs here on this Turn It Up Tuesday. Now with Adley Rutschman going into 2026. A year and a half ago, you can make a case he was the best catcher in baseball. Since then, not so much. Matter of fact, Cal Raleigh might be the MVP of the league. Will Smith is in the playoffs right now for the Dodgers. He's really good. So Adley's no longer mentioned in that breath among the best at his spot. How big is this season going to be for him in regards to not just his legacy with the Orioles, but whether or not he's going to be an impact guy when it's all said and done?
Huge. I mean, this is. I don't think that I can underestimate or understate how important this year is for this franchise. They have a group of young players, and we all know who they are. We've named a few of them here, who all basically underperformed last year. Jackson Holiday, moved up a bit, but other than that, they all underperformed. Whether it was injuries or just underperformance. And those guys have to do better in 2026, or this whole thing is under question. Because that was the key, that was the key to the team, building these young core players. And Rutschman is the first one. Yes, Tony Mansolino kept saying that, his defense was really good. I know his defensive metrics were good. But, from the number one overall draft pick in 2019, you weren't, you didn't draft him to be a good fielding 220 hitter. You wanted him to be a switch hitting impact player, which he was until the All-Star break of 2024. He showed signs before he got hurt of that player. And then, then he had those oblique strains. So this year is just so huge for him. It's huge for Cowser. It's huge for Westberg, and it's huge for Henderson. I mean, Henderson had a pretty good year and a good year in the field, but, it wasn't the superstar type year. So all these guys have to do well. I have, fewer questions actually about their starting pitching than I do about the position players, which is an interesting turn for them, I think.
Hey, Rich, have you heard anything about Hyder and the managerial jobs?
Yes, I know he is. I know Brandon Hyde is very interested in managing again, and there was a report that he talked to the San Francisco Giants about their opening, and I know that I remember in 2018, before he was hired here, he interviewed for a number of those open jobs, and I would think that he would be a very popular managerial candidate in a lot of places, and I think that he'll probably get one of those jobs, because I don't know that the crop of prospective managers is that great out there. So I think that Brandon Hyde may very well be a manager in Major League Baseball elsewhere in 2026.
All right, Rich, real quick, who's going to the World Series? Seattle in a pretty good spot, winning 2 in Toronto. Dodgers and Brewers had an interesting game, to say the least, last night. LA's up 1-0. Who's in the Fall Classic?
Yeah, you got to go with Seattle because they're up 2-0, and even though it would be great for baseball, I think, if Milwaukee came in there, because that would sort of be, a small market team that does things right. It's real hard to pick against the Dodgers.
Rich Dubroff, BaltimoreBaseball.com. Rich, always great to catch up with you. Enjoy the rest of your Turn It Up Tuesday. Turn it up to 12, Rich.
I will do my best Thanks to you and Vinny.
All right, here's Rich Dubroff, everybody. We'll come back, reset the program for you. NFL lunch coming up at 1 o'clock. Feeble 5. We're the 5 worst teams in the NFL through 6 weeks. Doubleheader last night. We'll talk about those. Bill Bender, Sporting News Talk College Football. James Franklin out at Penn State. Matt Rule talking about how much he loved Penn State when he met with the media. Maryland's lost 2 in a row, or the Terps teetering on yet another late season collapse.
After Vinny and Haynie, it's Inside Access.
Harp says Lamar's on the way back, but can even Lamar save the season? We'll ask Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network and Mike Bordick on the MLB playoffs.
Next.